Hey, I'm Nadia, and welcome to the Cornerberg channel. I usually live stream my artwork in progress with no audio, but in this stream, to celebrate the completion of my first 3D sculpt, I'll be live streaming with my voiceover. Well, it's my first time putting any sort of audio on my YouTube channel, and it feels strangely comfortable, but at the same time, the introvert in me is desperately finding a cave to hide in and scream. And I'm bad with multitasking, so I may struggle to speak when I am doing my sculpt later on for this vase here. But I figured this is something that I have to do eventually, so I have to start somewhere and get the practice in. So I apologize in advance if my voice and the audio isn't great, but I will do my best. And thank you for listening in. I will start with a short introduction of myself. I'm Nadia, an artist based in Singapore, and I like to draw and sculpt. I'm still putting a huge focus on building up my 2D and 3D skills. So my live streams on this channel has been super basic. Just my camera pointing on my sketchbook or iPad. There's no audio, so I've been just scribbling away my thought process here, just as a caption. And it's just me doing my work with the hope that I can improve and that my personal art pieces will look good in the end. I'm still trying to figure things out, but I thought it would be a cool idea to get used to streaming while I work on improving my art. And I also hope to give you some company while you're working on your own stuff, whether it's art or something else. With that out of the way, I will share some of my process in making this. I will also share what I learned, some beginner tips that I found helpful that you may find useful too, if you're a sculptor, and hopefully show you something cool or interesting. Hopefully. And so a brief background on this. I started this sculpt mid of last year, I think. Well, I was just playing around with 3D sculpting as usual. And I mean, to anyone who have watched my previous live streams, you probably would have guessed. Like, you probably can tell with how long I took to finish this that I've always had the problem of not finishing what I started. So with this particular project, I was like, Nadia, get your shit together. Sit down, do the work, see it through. And I'm not sure if other artists feel the same way, but liking too many things has always been frustrating to me as an artist. I love making super detailed, complex, beautiful things, but I also like soft and cute things like this. It's hard to zoom in with the turntable. Cute. But there are two things that I don't really see put together often, or at least in the way that I like. I also, well, in the past, lacked the skill to make them myself, with my past art being either only like only cool or only cute. Like it was hard to blend my two interests together. And so this year I set some goals. And so like one of my goals is to incorporate all the things that I like in my art pieces. And most importantly, the most important goal of all is to finish my first 3D sculpt in my life, which is a big deal because I rarely finish my 2D illustrations even. And so like finishing a 3D sculpt has always been a huge dream of mine. And this is the final result. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, just looking at it, I'm just so relieved that it's finally done. But yeah, back to the sculpt. I will show you around, and as mentioned before, I'll share some tips on how I made this. And this is not a tutorial, by the way. It's just things that I thought would be cool to share with you guys. So yeah, my nerves. I also go through what I'll be doing later on with this vase here and sculpt on it live, like as usual, and hopefully finish this part on stream. Okay, so let's stop the turntable and bring out the outliner. Let me see. So the initial idea that I had, autosave. The initial idea that I had for this was like to make a highly detailed pretty sculpt with something cute, with my cute corner band inside, like this. So that was the base idea that I had, and I started from there. And I will show you the old files. So this was what I started with. You can see it's pretty simple and straightforward. Let me see if this was, yeah, this wasn't it. So this was the starting point, and then it went on to become this. So the initial idea that I had was to put, let me just disable, I don't really like the finger adjusting the gizmos. So I played around till I stumbled on this idea of the hair flowing down like water. And by the way, this app is Nomad Sculpt, and I'm really thankful that this exists. It's a huge part of how I could hit my goal of finishing a 3D sculpt, and it's so much fun. Like, please pick it up if you can. So I have to say that the hardest part in the beginning was figuring out what I wanted the base to be. The hair was hard, but it was a different type of difficulty. So I knew that I wanted the hair to flow out like water. And so I wanted to keep this idea of this water plate having high water surface tension. So as I was figuring out how to do this base, I ended up sticking with this simple cylinder here. And how I made this is to just use this lathe tool, and you can just quickly draw this out, and you can adjust this like that. And you can also go like crazy with this. So that's how, oh, this like crazy orange. So that's how this was started. And so like back when I did this was my first 3D sculpt in a way, or at least my first 3D sculpt as an older artist. So I wanted to do something simple. Let me just delete this. So I wanted to do something simple because I was still trying to figure out how to use this app, or I mean, I'm still trying to figure out how to sculpt and use the different tools in this. So when I was making this, one of the things that I struggled with was, what do I want to put on this? And initially I did. So this was what I just like came up with. It's quite ugly. But so in the past I did multi-resolution. So this is like what everyone says, like, you know, do your base mesh right, and then go and then subdivide. And this like was not working for me. It was also not working for the hair too. So if you would look at this, so you see that I have this crazy high amount of polygons just for this supposedly simple looking base mesh. And it was just not working out. Like my nomad sculpt was lagging like crazy. And it was quite frustrating because I like to do freehand drawing, and I like to draw plants and leaves, and they're usually quite organic. So I wanted to do something like this. This was done with ballpoint pen. And I wanted to do something like this in like with my sculpts. And because of this subdivision thing, I kept like putting the sculpt down for months until one day, like I knew about dynamic topology, but I didn't really know how to use it. So one of the days, a few months after setting this up, I decided to try it again. And so let me show you how I end up making this. So you can see if I do this, I can sculpt fine. But once I want to go really detailed, then I'll need to subdivide this. But then you see how there are all these spaces where it's flat and doesn't need any subdivision. So my iPad couldn't handle this. So if you have faced this kind of issues before, I would recommend dynamic topology. So they'll say multi-resolution will be lost, and you can just say yes. So what I like with dynamic topology is to use the screen, because like it's more straightforward to me. And then now I can sculpt like this. I can smooth this out. And because the detail is based on screen, if I don't like something, I can just zoom out. Let me just bring up the wireframe. I can zoom out and smooth this out, or smooth this out. So let me just do one on with like super high detail. So I'm going to zoom in like this. And if I don't like it, I can just undo it, or I can just remove it like that. So like after I figured, I don't remember how I stumbled upon this, but after I realized that I could do this, I was like, oh my god, this was what I wanted this whole time. I think I was on and off this for 4 months before I stumbled on dynamic topology, and I was like, holy shit, like I can draw on my scalp. So the same thing happened with the hair. So I struggled a lot with this hair because I was facing the same issue. If I want to do this, all these details here, let me see if I can. If I want to do details here, you can see that all these polygon starts showing up. And it becomes hard for me to draw on this. So let's see if I want to do this. There's only so much that I can do. But once I can do dynamic topology, you can see how much easier this is. For me at least. I still stand by doing the usual multi-resolution for simple objects, maybe. But when it comes to drawing on my scalp, this is my preferred. Dynamic topology is my preferred method. So yeah, I wasn't really sure what I was going to show you in this stream, but I will just say what pops in my head. Yeah, so that was how I went from this to this. Oops, it's too bright. And finally to this. Can do a short demonstration on maybe this one. So what I would do would be to smooth this out. Is this even a tutorial? I don't know. Just doing what I like to do. And I like to use the brush, the crease, the move tool, and smooth. Like these are my 4 go-to brushes. So I'll just do some drawing. Just push things in and out. Why am I using my macro keypad when it's not even connected to this? So I'll just push things in and out like that. See, it's a leaf. It was a lot of back and forth. Like I didn't even know like what this was supposed to look like, so I was just trying things out with this. And yeah, I'm glad that it turned out fine. I mean, yeah, it turned out quite nice. So I did the same thing for the hair, which is to turn on dynamic topology and do some drawing. I didn't do any sketches for these beforehand because drawing on a 3-dimensional sculpt it feels different from drawing on a flat plane. So, and also because this was my first sculpt, so I just wanted to see where it takes me. So it's hard to move around when you get into the map. Yeah. I think looking back at this, it brought a lot of memories of how I struggled so hard just making this, just this. And this too. But I'm happy that the struggles were worth it. Let me see what else I can talk about with this, because doing these things that I do, I feel that I kind of forget what I struggled with. But I will try to remember this for this stream. But you know, I think this is about it for here. Let me do the rest here so that it looks better. So because I wasn't basing this off a sketch, and I was just drawing this freehand, I didn't have an end goal in mind. I didn't know how this would look like at the end of the day. So instead of picturing the end goal for this, what I did was to set some guidelines. And I think it might be helpful to anyone who struggles like me to finish anything, to set some guidelines for yourself so that you don't stray afar. So one of the things that I set for myself is to not have straight or parallel lines. And what I mean by that is this on? What I mean by that is that I don't want, remember to turn on dynamic topology. Let me set this to 70. maybe 70 is too much. So what I mean by that is I don't want parallel lines. So instead of doing that, I'll do this instead. I guess it's more complicated than that, but sometimes when you feel overwhelmed, you can just focus on something small and just build it up from there. Like this. That looks nice. The other rules that I set for myself is that I wanted everything to blend together and not look out of place. So how I go about doing that with so much details is to put distinct features. So something distinct would be something like this. So I'll put something distinct. I'll put something distinct at multiple places. So if you see this motif here, I'll put it here. I put it here and here. And I also put it here. You see this metal tube here. I put it here to make it more cohesive and make it look like it makes sense, or make it look like it's intentional. So another thing that I did was putting, there's a leaf here. So another thing I did was, because the order that I did this was, I finished this first, finished the vase first, then the hair, then the water ripples. And so what I wanted to do was to bring some elements of these onto these things, but not exactly the same. So it's not just a copy and paste, it's like a reference or inspiration, and make it tweak a bit with the characteristics, tweak it with the characteristics of the specific object that I'm doing. So you'll see that in this case, on the vase, the leaves have a sort of like a hard edge to them, I think. I don't remember what I set myself to do for this. So you'll see that they have some hard edging, something like this. Autosave. But for the hair, I wanted to make it more flowy, a little, in some sense, more curved. So what I did was to add this leaf, but I make the edges softer. So that's how I go about blending the things. So when I did the water base, because I didn't know what I wanted it to look like, I just kept referencing. Like the hair was done, the vase was done, and so I was just referencing to both of them and adding little pieces that I like. Like let's say if I like this part here. So just adding different pieces that I like from here, put it here, or I think there's like one, like I like this a lot, and because I like that a lot, I put it somewhere. I can find it. Here? Something like that. I'm sorry if you can hear my mouth sounds or something. Yeah, so I think something like this. I got it from, oh, something like this. I got it from here. So that was one of the things that I did. I mean, it sounds quite straightforward, and I'm sure the execution is harder, like it's easier said than done. I mean, that's why it took so long to do this. But it's something that I always kept in my head as I'm sculpting this, and it helped a lot. So one of the most obvious ones, which I find, is the bird's wing. So this corner bird, because it's cute and it doesn't really sit in this whole thing to me, what I do was to add the elements of the other things onto its wings. I mean, I probably have to do something here, maybe to blend it a bit more, or I may just leave it as it is, because it's quite cute. So with that said, that's how I blend the different elements together. Maybe it's easier to see here. So that's how I put them all together. So the next thing is that it should look good in all angles. So when I'm sculpting all this, let's say this thing here, I'm not just sculpting it from this angle. I'll rotate around and make sure that feels like that is too straight, but I'll fix it next time. So just making sure that it's looks nice, which I think that was one of the issues that I have. So maybe I'll just add a sphere here. So let's say if you have this sphere, let's say if you move this around like this, so it may look nice here as a sphere. It may look nice and smooth, but when you rotate this around, you're like, oh, there's something weird with this. Like let's say if you want to sculpt a head, so you're like, oh, this side profile looks nice, and then when you turn around, it's like, oh, brain damage. So it's important to just rotate around and make sure that this volume and the volume of it makes sense in different directions. And it also helped a lot with, so like let's say if I get stuck with this, I'm like, I don't really know what I want this to look like. Then what I will do is to make a rotation and move it somewhere, rotate this, move it, make it look nice, make it look nice. And then when I'm back here, like, oh, it looks like a nice leaf. I guess that's about it. Oh, one of the things that let me delete this. This was what I ended up with once I finished everything. And it felt like something was missing. So sometimes when you feel like Or sometimes when I feel like something's missing, what I will do is to look at the silhouette of it. So I was thinking, it looks a bit too monotone in a way. It's too symmetrical. So what I did, but I didn't want to spend any more effort on this. And like if you're an artist like me who is chronically always finding fault in your art pieces and you can't finish anything, I think one great lesson that I learned was to put that effort into your next one. So as much as that sounds like an excuse, I feel like this water ripples here are a little bit too uniform because I always go overboard. But like I wanted it to have more variations, I guess. But because I didn't want to spend too much time, like any more time on this, like it looks nice like this. So what I did was to break up the silhouette with the flowers here. And I like flowers too, so it was a win-win. So I break it up. And that way, I can also break up some of the areas here, which I found too consistent. So not only are these good for breaking up this silhouette here, so now there's some visual interest. It also helps to break up some of these. So if you look before, so there's some areas which I find a little bit too similar. And now when I put the flowers in, it looks nice. I can briefly show you how I made these. Because this is straightforward and I can show it to you. What I like to do is to add a radial. Oops. I'm not really good with the interface. You know what? I just add a new group. And I'm getting tired, so just speak like this. ASMR, nomad sculpt. So what I would do is to put these somewhere on the surface. Like that. And then depending on how many petals you want, you can set this later on. Then I will add a spear. I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it. This is just the way that I did it. So I put a spear here. Suddenly become a flower making tutorial. I'll flatten this. and then I'll rotate this. And you can make as many petals as you want. Maybe I'll try 8 petals. And then you can adjust this. And that's how I made this. And because it's a flower petal, I try to make it thin. But the problem with thin meshes is, let's say if I validate this and I do Dynamesh on this, so the problem with thin meshes is, let's say if I draw this, why are you working so well today? Oh, right, it's not. Let me just bring this up because it's really hard to look around with that thing. So you see that you can get into problems with, I think, usually crease brush or maybe brush. As long as you press hard enough, it will get to the other side. That wasn't really good. Maybe this. So if I do this hard enough, why are you working so well? If I do this hard enough, there, it will affect the other side. And you don't want, I don't want this. So how to fix this is, I'll keep this tab open here with this button here. Under filter, and this is for individual brushes, I will turn this on. And so now when I sculpt this, my brush only affects one side. Tired. You know what? Let's just solo this. So it will only affect one side. So it will stop doing these crazy things here. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And then smooth this out. And this side will be completely fine. So this was something that I found helpful with thin meshes. So things like, maybe if you're doing t-shirts or leaves or I haven't sculpted much, so I can't give you good examples. But so this is how I made the flowers. And I'll move this around. Oh, and another thing that I like to do is to switch off dynamic topology for the move brush. It used to be in the previous version, I think, that the dynamic topology was switched off for the move brush. And I'm not really sure if they activated it because the RAM usage is a lot better now. Like even for my old iPad Pro. But it still lags a lot for me. So I prefer it off because I can do dynamic topology with my other brushes anyway. So I can do like this, and move this about, and then using my smooth brush, I have dynamic topology like that. And I hope that my voice is fine because it's starting to break. But it's a cool first attempt, I guess. I hope. I hope I'm not destroying eardrums out there. So this is how I made these. And you can go ahead and, let's say, move this. Make another one. Oh, I guess this looks better. So you can go ahead and duplicate your sphere and use this using the same radial, make a different layer. Or you can make a different radial, and that way you can set how many petals you want for each section. And that's about it for these. These are just things that I've found so helpful when I was making this. So I would probably have probably liked using the front facing vertex for these things on the skirt. Because as you can see, there's some thin edges here. And sometimes when I sculpt, let's say when I'm making this detail here, it goes through to the other side. So that would have been helpful, but at that time, I didn't know about it. So, I mean, I think I knew about it, but with the new version, I couldn't find it. But it's here. It's just here. Of course, once you start working on the edges, or once I start working on the edges, I would want to switch it off. So if I'm working on the edge, I'll prefer this to be off because I think it will cause some weirdness with this. It being like, I guess it's not sure whether or not it's working on this side or that side. So I will just make this thin like that and smooth it out. And as usual with how I use dynamic topology, is that if I want to go really detailed, I'll zoom in. Or you can also just increase this. And if I don't like it, I would just zoom out a bit more. Or you can decrease this. And think this looks nice. But I'm not keeping this. I'm sorry to go, but thank you. Water break. I think the stream has gotten a bit long, so I'll move on to what I wanted to do today. Which is to refine this area, which I started with first. So as I mentioned before, one of the things that I like to do to finish something is to put distinct elements that I like. So when I was doing this, or when I was doing all of this, what I was doing was to just mess around, draw this, draw that, hoping that something will look nice. So I made this, made this, made this, and then I came across, and then I drew this part here, which I'll just move out a bit more. Why you like? So I like, oh, let's just undo this. So I like this, but it only exists here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So it looks incomplete to me. Like I'm not really sure whether it will look incomplete to you, but these are things that I look out for when I sculpt. So what I did off stream was to add the same exact elements around, and that's what I did with this too. And so I'm going to keep quiet for a bit and do the usual sculpting live. And let's see if I can finish this today. And another thing was that there were some areas like this one where it's too lumpy. So I'm going to fix this too. Things like this. And yeah. My first voiceover live stream is done. Let's get to work. I'm going to listen to some music and do my work in silence. Also, if anyone out there, if you have any questions for me for this sculpt, because I can't think of anything since I was the one who made this, feel free to reach out to me or leave comments or something, and I will be really happy to help with your questions. Because I think, like I'm just looking at all this and I feel like it's a bit straightforward to me, but it might not be straightforward to you. So yeah, I'll be happy to help. one of my favorite albums of all time. By Mag. Rest in peace. Oh, and one more thing, which I just thought about since I'm starting on this. I don't really want to put this everywhere. But it's easier said than done. But what I would do is to just try and sprinkle this over as evenly as possible, because that's what this vase is. It's quite how to say, it's quite even in a way. So I'll just distribute this over. So like, let's say if I have this here, I'm not going to put this here if it's here, if you get what I'm trying to say. So I'll put this, so I've already put one here, so most likely I'll put one here maybe, and I'll just see as I work through this. Another thing that I like to think about besides parallel lines is, well, I guess it's about parallel lines, that I don't want things to be too symmetrical. So if you see the distance here and the distance here, what I've drawn in this is a little bit too even for me. So I'll just undo this. Oh my god. Well, it's still a bit even, but it looks better. Yeah. And it's something that I think about too, because of the way I draw as a sculpt, is that sculpting inwards and sculpting out creates a different mood. It looks nice, but it doesn't really fit in. So I can demonstrate to you now. This is me sculpting with subtraction. This is how it looks like. And then this is me sculpting outwards. It looks different, right? So that's what I think about when I'm sculpting these. Sometimes when I feel like something is not working out, but I like the shape of this, what I would do is to do the opposite and like, it looks better, and if it doesn't, then I just remove it. So you can see here with how this leaf here protrudes out and this leaf here goes into the clay. You can see how they look quite different. I mean, it's also a drawing, like a stylistic difference, but pushing in and out makes a difference in what something will look like, especially when you're trying to do artistic looking illustrations on a 3D sculpture. which is why I find it was quite hard, but it's also it's pretty fun to do this, because unlike drawing on paper, you have to think about whether or not it looks nice from this angle and whether or not it looks nice from here. You have to think about whether or not this surface is round, because it is the concept of this is to do a round vase. So if it's not round, then I have to fix it. But yeah, I will mute now. I find areas like this pretty hard, because the way that I drew this looks almost like this one. And it's the same thing of how I don't like symmetry or parallel lines, that I don't like two of the exact same things together. So I'm trying to get by that by drawing something different from this side on outwards. Something, oh, that looks nice. Yep, I'll keep this. I will keep this. It's ridiculous how tired I am right now. Just whisper like this. This two things are dangerously looking I think. Ah. I don't really speak often on stream, so no one probably knows, but this is how I'm usually like when I'm doing my work. Struggling. Does it look nice? I have no idea. Maybe if I move this a bit more, then maybe it work. I think. I'm sorry for lack of stamina. But comes to things like this, what I do is close my eyes and I'll move away. Okay. This is quite hard for me. Maybe if I do this. Yeah, that looks nice. Something that I feel. Should I whisper or should I talk? Something that I feel is important for me is brush size. So you can see when I have a big brush for crease, it extrudes out more. But at the same time, it pulls more of the details like this. So it will squeeze more things in the distance inwards. And that may be a good thing. But if I just want to add details without affecting the base topology, I'll use a small brush and add the details. So I applied the same thing here. I feel like this curve is too much. So if I put it this way, like so it doesn't look sharp, what I'll do is to use a small brush and go over it again. Something like that. Is it too even? Same thing with the move brush. If I use a bigger size, I can move things more. And if I use a smaller size, I can make small adjustments like that. So it's useful depending on what you want to make. And it's something that you will kind of get the intuition of as you use them, or as you practice more. I've only been using these 4 brushes mainly for my sculpt, so I kind of know what I want them to do. And I think this is what I want to do. And of course, look at the other angle here and bring this out because it's round, so I don't want this to be flat. Something like that. This hard. I guess it's hard to speak and sculpt at the same time when I don't know what I'm doing. And I think this looks nice, so I'll keep this. One thing that I almost forgot to mention is that I'm sculpting this vase with autosave. I'm sculpting this vase with symmetry, radial symmetry enabled. So I can do a quick demo for you. So if I put a sphere like this, validate it, dynamesh this, dynamic topology this. By default, this will be on. You can go ahead and switch this off. And because I want it to affect this direction here, I will turn this on. So let's see if I set this at 10, maybe. Then now you can see the brushes will appear on. Ten places. So the same thing applies with this. I think I have this on 5. So what I draw here will appear here too. So this was useful when I had no idea what I want this to look like. And it was also quite motivating because when I add stuff to this, it finishes. I have 1, 2, 3. The other 4 areas are done too. So technically, I'm just working on this area here. And once I'm done with this, everything is complete. I think this is something a slower artist like me if you're a slow artist like me, you'll appreciate this a lot because it motivates me to finish something and not be stuck. I will keep going. You know what, it's getting a bit laggy, so I guess throwing in a bunch of tutorials here. I feel like it's probably because I'm using an old iPad, and because of that, it can't handle everything, like too many faces. So since I'm done with these, yep, it's too much. I kept them on because I thought that they could handle it, but it's starting to get a bit laggy. If I think about it. I should save a new file. So if your file is getting laggy, what you can do is to, especially with dynamic topology and doing all these details, you eventually hit too many polygons. And so what you can do very quickly is to, let me just put this here. Next to the dynamic topology tab is this miscellaneous tab here. And you don't have to adjust any of this. All you have to do is to just decimate. So we can see that the details are retained if I undo and redo the decimation. And I think I can go further than this. Yep, I think that's all that I would do for this. Same thing here. I will decimate this. Well, I hope that seeing my workflow is interesting to anyone out there. Oh, cool. I don't know because I stare at this all day. I'm going nuts. Let me decimate this too. I mean, I don't even know whether this is a good sculpt. Like, I don't even know whether my art is good. Sometimes I get, oh, I feel like this is too much. Mm. And let me decimate this. So you can see that I went from, why is it 5 million? I don't know. It went from a certain amount to a certain amount. And I'll keep decimating till I feel like it's too much. You can see that it's starting to get too much this, so I'll undo this. And the nice thing about decimation is that it keeps more of the faces here and reduce the number of faces more in, well, it's partly the settings, but it will keep more of wait, I can just estimate again. So you can just take a look at this area, or even just this area here and this area here. You can see this area is more like this now because there isn't much. There aren't that many details there. Just quickly look at this. Also, just note that there's a warning here that you probably shouldn't use it if you want to continue sculpting. But because I sculpt with dynamic topology, it hasn't really been an issue for me. And I will be fixing the topology in Blender. So far all these wouldn't be an issue. I think this is a quad remesher now. Like, thank you. On nomad sculpt. But I'll probably use the one on Blender first. And I think it's less laggy now because I've reduced from over 3 million to under 3. So that's how I reduce. If I have a better, like a stronger iPad, then maybe I wouldn't be decimating so much, but it doesn't really matter to me. I like this iPad. So I can show you this thing here. I will look at the side like, and I don't really know what I want to do with this. So I'll change the angle and adjust it a bit to give some variations and adjust it a bit more from different angle. And that's how I make these things. I think it's looking better now. Yep, I think I feel like this area is too. So I will zoom out a bit and smooth it out to blend them together.